Hello, everyone. Okay, so let's please raise your hand if you have set up any Kubernetes cluster. I see a lot of folks have created. How many are developers here? All of developing? Cool. Okay, so now let's talk about how was your experience while creating a cluster? Was it an easy job or a difficult job? Anyone would like to answer? Please raise your hand.
Hello. So setting up the unmanaged cluster was not at all easy. It requires like if you are using Minikube, then it is a different thing. But using KubeADM, it is not at all easy. It at least requires 2 to 3 hours setting up nodes, and then if you add multiple nodes, connecting them would be again a difficult task. So it requires a lot of time. But I have used managed as well, which is done within 10-15 minutes. So yeah.
Thanks for the feedback. Okay, so let's take a let's step back and take an example. If I have to set up my laptop itself, it takes couple of hours, right? Now I'm talking about a cluster setup. A cluster setups where I can have 3 center nodes and I can have multiple node pools ranging from 10 nodes, 20 nodes or more. Let's talk about our enterprise scale. Will it be easy to manage this much of nodes? How you can manage this? How you can interconnect them? It becomes a tedious job. And Kubernetes and containerization helps is aimed to ease our job. What does they ease is basically we can deploy the code anywhere, we can scale up or scale out on requirements, right? So now how I can go ahead and do this particular scaling and make my life easy. Let's see that. So we'll talk about DY Kubernetes, managed Kubernetes, how it managed Kubernetes helps with the developer experiences, monitoring, information observability, how it can help the organizations for reducing of the costs, and how AI can help empower us now. As a developer, how it can be easy with the help of AI also. And then we'll talk about security features. So there's a snapshot where we can see what all it becomes easy with the help of a managed Kubernetes and what can be difficult from the DIY Kubernetes. Containerizations or deployments. If you have to debug something, you have to go with your native tools or you have to go ahead and deploy an observability platform. Now the next question is comes, which observability platform you will like? Fine. If we go to CNCF, we see lots of observability platforms over there, especially like Prometheus, Grafana, and then we have to set up. And setting up a dam can be a pain task. There can be lot of errors, lot of things, and then we have to figure out how to solve them. But if you go to a managed Kubernetes environments, they have already plugged in, they have the sets, and once you install it, it comes by default. CI/CD deployments, setting up your CI/CDs, your agents in a custom part can be a difficult part, and especially like cluster hostings and upgrades. So let me ask you, what's the Kubernetes release cycle? Anyone knows that part?
3 months.
Every 3 months. So think of an enterprise scenario where every quarter you need to go ahead and upgrade your systems. Is it feasible? And how will you roll back? So that's the one of the thing that we have to do, and we have to automate that part so that it becomes easy. And with managed Kubernetes, it's pretty much easy part. We'll talk about it. Same goes with patching and scaling. So let's say there's an event ongoing, and you require 2 more nodes to be set up. How much faster can be done? If you are doing with yourself, you need to provision the VMs. Let's say you are doing it both in the cloud. You need to provision the VMs, set them up, and then put the hardening, and then add them nodes to them. But it can be done in seconds if we are working on the managed part. We talk about monitoring logging. So to summarize, uh, I will not say like managed Kubernetes is always better or DIY, it doesn't have any advantages. DIY also has advantages. If you're doing something custom, and you want control at every point, from your configurations, from your network, from your hardening policy. You can get that, but think of the complexity it will generate to the systems. The systems generally don't require that part, so that's why it should be avoided. Um, you can mix and match the tools, whatever tools you want to use. You can go ahead and use it, because managed will be having some limitations. Okay, I'm using this and this is available, but uh, unmanaged, whatever I want to go ahead, I can do. And it can be, if it is a small part and you have your own systems available, it can be a bit cost effective. But if you took look at the total cost of ownership, the management and the potential downgrades there that can happen, the break fixing, it becomes a much expensive. So similarly, we'll talk about the weaknesses. Setting up Kubernetes. Trust me, whoever's just created those Kubernetes clusters in their enterprises or by themselves, they know. Even for the development perspective, even you have created it you manually. Also, you will know the pain. For me also, once I created manually the first time, it took me around 3 days to resolve all the problems. But if I, as a novice, I go to any hypervisor, I go to Azure and I create it, it takes just only 15 minutes. We'll see that demo, right? There are a lot of integration points, lot of things that you do, and a small mistake. Let's say you have blocked the networking stuff. Your API cluster is not working. And then to figure out what was the mistake, it takes a lot of time. Uh, it can be a weaker solutions. You don't have a lot of documentations to it and to troubleshoot. And let's talk about the enterprise. You're creating a microservices and zones. Do you think that only Kubernetes will be sufficient here? You need a lot of things like gateways. You need security components. You need WAF, right? You need addresses, ingress points. So these all requires a parts. And with creating a complex infrastructure and adding lots of artifacts on top of that infrastructure becomes a much cumbersome process. So that's why it's always good to go ahead and use managed Kubernetes like Azure Kubernetes services, which can give you a better efficiencies, operational excellence. It can help you with a resilient part. You can even have a HA and DR enabled. You can have a better developer productivity, because the developer and your ops team will not work into managing the Kubernetes part. They will work on what's required for the business, creating more applications, managing your containers. That's what we all want to do, right? As a developer, I don't want to go ahead and spend my time in setting up the environment. What I just need to do is, okay, this is my piece of code. It's working in my part. I have done the black box testing for that. Let's move it to the upper environments, do the proper testing there, and move it to the production. That's all we want to do. And we can have we can infuse the open source also, and given AKS supports the open source parts. If you have said, okay, I'm using the XYZ open source component, can I use it in AKS? The answer is yes. So I will take a pause and ask everyone to read here. And if you have queries, feel free to ask. So this slide is talking about what all the major of the things that we have to go ahead and look from Kubernetes perspective, and what all the AKS can provide you.
Let's talk about blue-green deploys.
Yeah. So the deployments, how you generally do the deployments without ensuring there will be a no downtime.
In stages and then to the production one. So basically, we see that what is the like basic like development of the what is the app is what the background of app is it as a web application or a mobile application. So we uses the app service of Azure to see and we have the deployment stage slots and different slot for the same. So, but how in Kubernetes work? I want to learn.
Yep, I will just give you a brief idea here, and because probably that is a complete different section that we have to go. So if you see app services, you have slots, right? You're talking, and these are the production slots. So it's like alpha beta testing, what we can say. Beta testing, we test with for 20% of live load, and here somehow we can do with the liquid deployments. They are the concepts like redeployment slots, and you can have your percentage defined. That's how it can be done in Kubernetes also. Any other questions here, team? Cool. Uh, so let's see what all things are using Kubernetes. If we talk about inside some of the key systems in Microsoft also, we are using AKS. Whether it's Chat GPT, the Bing that you might have tried, whether it's Office 365, Teams, Xbox, or GitHub, these all are leveraging AKS. Even the Chat GPT, that's the revolutionary part for in the generative languages, is using AKS. So you can see how much load AKS can handle. And it becomes easy for the deployments, easy to manage, and easy to optimize. So what we were talking about, like Kubernetes, we don't only for our enterprise applications, we just only not need a compute power. Or Kubernetes is containers. That's only some section. It's a core. Yes, we understand your code is running, but we need other things also. If you see over the screen, like you might need in ecosystems like Cura and other parts, you need a security layer above it. You need a messaging platforms. AI infusion to create the intelligent apps. You need your databases, your API management gateways, your observability platforms, your testing platforms, and plus we need developer tools also, right? We need the source controls, we need CI/CD. So that's all make the complete ecosystems, and we need a seamless ecosystem so things can talk to each other and things can be deployed easily. So I observed here most of our developers here and or they will be looking ahead to become the developer. So let's see how managed Kubernetes can help us for the developer part. So as a developer, if someone asks me, I want to get a problem and I want to work into that problem, create, resolve that problem. I don't want to ensure like, okay, where I need to go ahead and deploy it. And containers is because my first choice because a container, if it can run on my local system, it can run anywhere, right? So I can do that. But let's say if someone asks me, okay, Hemant, you have developed this application, it's working fine, but now I want to create a production setup for it. And I said, okay, let's say there'll be, it requires 1,000 transactions per second. The workload is coming and they want me, okay, I need a 5 node cluster to be set it up. If I start going and manually setting up, if I ask the ops teams, it can become a weak task with hardening and everything. But obviously, with Kubernetes, it can be a 10-minute task to manage Kubernetes AKS. Plus, if I have to monitor, it can be the same. So if you talk from developer perspectives, the development, your CI/CDs, and your monitoring can be easy. And you can see it's like if you see the screen, I will just use a pointer to be for you. If you see as a developer, I can go from zero in within a minute or more. I will be just able to have my application deployed. Can you think of the productivity now? See, right? Even you can create your Kubernetes manifest and keep it where if you want to just create provision a new environment, you can just do with the help of CI/CD, right? You can leverage dappers. You can even debug your microservices. You can do a complete monitoring enabled here. So if we see from the developer experience how it works, I created my code. I will deploy the codes, and then when I say the code is working fine, I'll get a Docker image, right? Then it becomes a container. Then I can put this container to a container registry where all my images will be stored. And this is my basically a developer part. And then we go ahead to the deployment part where we can deploy it to the AKS. It can be a low environment. We can do a test. We find bugs. We resolve them. Go back. It can creatives. And then we can leverage our code repository to push part. And once this is done, the DevOps cycle completes from developer perspective. Operations teams can go ahead and add the security features like creating the SSL certificates, DNS managing, and routing for the applications. Because as a developer, as an API for the operations teams, there can be hundreds of other APIs running, and they can leverage the same cluster, right? Or they need to give department because they will not expose the IPs. And we need, as a developer, we never work with the certificates parts, right? It's working, and those things the operation teams do. It can be done in collaboration. It can be easy. Now let's look how quickly I can go ahead and create a complete AKS cluster in couple of minutes. Just a second. What happened? Just give me a second. Yes. So here on the screen, if you see, I want to create a AKS resource. I will just go to a UI as a portal. I can just start. I will just give him, okay, which resource group I just want to create, which type of cluster I want to create. There are multiple preset configurations like production, testing, production economy, and enterprise. Based on my requirements, I can go ahead and choose the environment which I going to create. Let's say I'm going a standard position which has basic requirements for the position. I can just choose how many agent node pools, user pools I need. I can choose my networking configurations, whether it will be raw Kubernetes networking or Azure CNI networking based part. I can go add the pools. Once I have done, I will just give a name. This should be a unique name to my cluster. I will define the regions which I want to go ahead, and can choose the versions, which are the supported versions where I want to go ahead and deploy the Kubernetes. We can choose the encryptions and other settings which are available, and then I can just go ahead, run the validations, and click on create. And see, within a few of the times, I can go ahead and my Kubernetes cluster has started deploying. Within a minute, it will be done. And then I can go ahead and start deploying my applications on top of that. So we have a feature directly pushing from GitHub to the AKS. I will be demoing that feature here so that you can see how you can create automated deployments. It's directly available. If you see, I can create a containerize an applications. Even though you don't have a containerized application, but that application is container ready, you can just go ahead, use that code, give your workflow a name, sign into your GitHub account, and I'll choose the repo which contains my code, the branch from which I want to deploy, the environments, the applications, the ports where the application should work out, and it will create a containerized Docker file for me. Say, automatically, I don't need to worry about creating those part. I can choose the registry which my code will be pushed into. It can be a new, or I can choose the existing ones. So now I need to give my deployment details. The deployment files, which are the YAML files basically, which I want to be deployed on the Kubernetes. I can give that part. I'll tell him the details and it can create. So I get a preview of the file, and if I have to change something, I can go ahead and change it there. It's assistings and it saves a lot of time for me. And once I'm done, I just review and click on deploy. It has taken the deploy part. I can just approve the pull request. It will go ahead and deploy the things. And next time I make the changes and I get a pull request, it will start the deployment for me. You can see these are deployment YAML, service YAMLs, and my hello world YAML. All my pods, deployment and services YAML file has been created, and I just had my code from Dockerizations to this part automatically can done, and it will be deployed in the seconds. You can see the merging is happening. Once it's merged, my action will be triggered, and you can see the action has triggered. It has started the building image, and once the image is built up, it will start with the deployment part. You can see that's the deployment has started and my deployment is done. And if I see here, I see a workflow, and I can see inside my workflows, my namespaces, my deployments. I can see the pods and everything has been created. And if I go to my services, I will see a service being created with the hello world. I can just go ahead, click on the service, and we can see it's running. A pretty much simple, clean, and cool way to do the things. And we focus on solving our problems, creating a code which solves the business needs. Simply, if you want to create ingress and you want to add the certificates and other parts, we can go ahead and do on top of it. So this creates the certificates and use the certificates from the key vault. Any questions here?
What is the default CNI you guys are using in AKS?
So Azure provides a default kubenet and its own CNI. You can choose from the both.
So what if I want to have a different CNI? Is it possible to do that in AKS?
You can use kubenet and then you can define your network policies.
No, what I'm saying, just suppose I want to use Calico CDM, right, as a CNI. Will it be possible to remove your CNI and then use it?
Nope.
Okay.
So that's it. What we have seen here is the developer experience, how seamlessly it can happen. Now, other part as a developer, which I feel complex, is upgrade. Right. Every quarter is an upgrade. I need to test my application working fine or not. I need to ensure my UAT, dev, and other stacks, even till productions, are up to date or not. It becomes a complex part. Uh, Managed Kubernetes AKS solves this part. It can keep me to a supported version of AKS, and the best thing is like I don't need to worry about the disruptions. It can work without every disruption. It has the blue-green part deployment, so that without any downtime, it will upgrade my cluster. It will update the nodes. It will take one node at a time, upgrade and bring it back, and then move the loads. And then it can update the system also. So just to summarize here, we can stay in Kubernetes supported versions. The success will be high compared to your manual deployments. So those who have given the CCAD or CK certifications, you know, there's a section on upgrade. And that's the most difficult part. For me, while I was doing my certification, that was the most difficult part for me.
You upgrade some cluster from one particular to another, it only allows you to upgrade for three upper or lower releases.
Yes.
It supports some sort of difference of three minor releases, right?
Yep.
And why is it only for three? If like, I just want to know if there is a specific.
So this is by default is like for the compatibility purposes. Because there might be a lot of features which have been non-changed. Because till 3, the Kubernetes manages the compatibility, else it will not be supported. In those particular cases, if you're way behind, it's better to create a separate cluster, deploy your applications there, test it out, and then make that cluster as the primary cluster. So while you are upgrading, the outer world, the business users will never come to figure out whether there was an upgrade or not. That should be the ideal way of the upgrading. We don't want a tag on our websites, right? We are scheduled down for maintenance from this time to this time. And then after that time, we put a one more tag there, right? You might have seen a lot of websites that have still that happen. But if we talk about 5 years back, that was a common scenario. But now it should not be there. So one of the best things that you get support. So while using Azure, you will get a Microsoft support for the bugs. If there's some bug or something, even the hardening, you need OS upgrades also, right? Your nodes needs those upgrades. So they get you get the support, you get the upgrades to the latest releases, and it's all maintained by Microsoft. And even if you want to, you have done the deployments, you want to do rollback, the rollback is also pretty much easy. Now talk about monitoring. So we know if you are setting a custom part, the monitoring will require creating some like using parameters, Grafana, creating their nodes, creating their containers, defining their storage, and it becomes like a separate project for team to go ahead and use this particular monitoring. But if we are going with Azure Kubernetes, we have managed Prometheus Grafana. Even we have container insights and Azure Kubernetes services, which allows us to go ahead and seamlessly use. It's just a click and command. If you are the CLI lovers, you can just create a command. You can integrate it with that part, and your containers will start automatically getting the logs. You will see, you can just go ahead and then create your dashboards on your desire. So that's what we want to discuss here. We have container insights, which is the inbuilt one, which gives you all the logs. You don't need to go ahead and log into the manually to that container. Because obviously in development, I can go ahead and do it. But can you go ahead and log to a container in production environment? No. No one will like to go ahead there. So we have container insights. This gives the detailed insights to at the container level, what's happening at the bot level. Similarly, we have app insights, which not only can connect to your Kubernetes, give the insights from the Kubernetes pod deployment services, it can go ahead and connect to your databases, your gateway, the complete user flow, how the traffic is coming, starting from the front door till the end to the database. And it can give you the insights. If you see here, you will see there's something red here coming. So it gives the maps and other things where the bottleneck is like. Let's say if there's a performance down, my services are not working fine. So it can, someone can say, okay, no, it's the Kubernetes issue. Someone will say, no, it's a database issue. So we say, no, it's a networking issue. My network is down. So this can directly give you at a snapshot where we are seeing the bottlenecks, and then it can be taken forward.
That means it gives you assistance while troubleshooting some issue.
Yes.
Whereas in case you are not using some serverless solution for running Kubernetes, you have to manually find what is the problem.
Yes, if you're not, I will repeat your question and part. So if you are not if you are on DIY Kubernetes, the DIY Kubernetes will not give you any monitoring solution. You have to choose these solutions from the open source, build or any other solution, deploy there, and then manage that part. And then you have to create those answers, right? What's happening there? But here, if you're going a managed monitoring solution on the managed Kubernetes, it becomes easy. And the basic details you can directly get out of the box.
So basically, one question here, like this is possible because in enterprise level of companies, we have a lot of like traffic coming due to the but for the SME market, if I suppose they just have started few years back. So does this have a like another solution, because this comes have a like costing to them also is getting added up in their buckets. So what are like if they just hired one of the developer who knows the open sources and know about the thing. So does the developer go with the DIY or this AKS? What will the best prefer?
So for small enterprises and even for my testing purposes, I'll say go with the managed part. Why? The reason is first thing, let's say if you have a developer and you want to ask to them, okay, go ahead, use the open source, this XYZ monitoring tools, create a report. It will take a lot of time, and it's not guarantee like I will just do all the tech marks there. What all the my monitoring requirements were there. But here I get by default. And one of the best things is like these tools are like pay as you go. How much the consumption they are, like how much the data you are logging, that gets the charges. So if you're not logging a lot of things, your charges will be lesser.
I have one question. So this is a tracing plus APM kind of model, right? So what is the technology you guys are using? Is it something you have built natively or some open source technology is being used in the backend?
So technology is abstracted. It's basically using open telemetry also.
Is it possible to monitor this from the Azure monitor?
Yes, this is the application insights is the part of Azure Monitor. Even we have cluster troubleshootings. I think it's which can be done, and I can see the real-time signals and real-time parts, that the cluster insights that we were talking about earlier. I can, so coming to the cost part, I can just choose the frequency also. If I have to not monitor my cluster for a long time, I can choose, okay, just take some samples and I can choose the namespaces. If I have my production and namespaces running and the lower versions also in the SAS part or non-critical ones, I can exclude them monitoring for the costing purposes. Now the costing that becomes our other part. Generally for organization, the cost is part. And if you move to cloud, it might be a higher cost, or we have to perfect sizing. How we can go ahead and choose a perfect size. So we have analysis dashboards that's available out of box, where we can go ahead and choose like, okay, are you using your container is overutilized, underutilized, or okay utilized, right? Based on which you can get insights and you can save on the costing part also. I'll take a pause for a minute. If you have any questions, let me know.
I have one question, right? You mentioned about OpenAI, right, in the beginning. So I wanted to know up to what level you're using OpenAI in with this integration with AKS, right? Are you using it to get just an example, right? If OpenAI is telling you that some anomalies there, this pod has started every day at 4 a.m. or something.
It's a very good question. I have a demo for that. Let's wait and I will show you that demo. Any other questions related to cost here? So this is a particular view, how we can see in the dashboards, how the cost is coming up and which namespace and which deployments are taking most of the cost part. The compute part, we can go ahead and do at the granular way. And coming to your question, now AI everywhere. So now with managed Kubernetes, if I tell you, you can go ahead and use AI also. Like AI can help you to troubleshoot the issues. Let's say if you have a Kubernetes cluster where you want to do some troubleshooting. As a developer, I might need to figure out the commands. I can go from the native or I have to go and click there, but I don't know where I need to go. Can someone help me and guide me at the real time? The answer is yes. With the help of Azure Copilot, we can go ahead and do this part. Let's see that. I'll directly jump to the demo. So let's say I have this particular node pool and Kubernetes environment here, and I want to do something there. So I can open my Copilot and say, I want to just check, okay, does this cluster have the access to ACR? I just type the questions and it can ask me, okay, which way why I want to just create those part, right? I can give the details. It can even go ahead and give me the command for it. And I can just run the command directly from the Copilot. So if you see, it's starting the deployments. Just give me a second, something. So I can just choose. So if you see here, I can get the options from the UI itself. It can help me. It can help me understand the logs, also what's happening there and what can be a potential troubleshooting next step that I can go ahead and do. It gives me the command. It gives me a command prompt. I can go ahead and choose the command, right? It's just giving me details. I can see the logs also. And it has checked that, okay, I can go ahead and from my ACR, I can go ahead and pull the images. This not has a link to that. Now let's say if I want to ask another question. So I need to just collect my logs from the cluster. I just ask to OpenAI. I don't know how to do it. So it can go ahead, figure out and it can tell, okay, which container you want to go ahead and use. You said, okay, I want to use this one. It takes the context from your screen. Let's say if you're in .container, it will ask that the first part. If you're on the other part, that's the thing. And it can gives, and it can allow me the things, and the logs will be available there. I can go ahead there. I can see the logs will be available. Cool. So that's yeah.
Is it integrated with the subscription itself, or?
Yes, it's a preview feature. It's in a public preview. You need to register for the Azure Copilot. If you register for the Azure Copilot, you will be able to use this feature. It will be live soon.
Why don't you say Microsoft right?
Yes. Yep. So that's the feature, the benefits you will get on the Azure itself right now.
Developer changes the base image, the Docker images. So does it automatically pull that image and deploy it without our notice, or we have to manually take up the images, then
It depends on the pull image. If you have seen the older demo where I did the pull request. So based on the pull request, you can have the guardrails at your part. Also, you can have a CI/CD automatically deployment, or you can have the approval sections there. Obviously, in production, I will not go directly, but in my test environments, I can directly go ahead to the deployments. Okay, now coming to the last leg, security. Security is a major concern if we talk about, and if we are on right now, we see lots of attacks, lots of security, how we can go ahead and make sure. And now if we see, Microsoft can help you from the starting of the time from the security till your deployments. So if you are building your code, you can use tools like GitHub Advanced Security, which can check your code, make sure everything is working. And we have defenders. If once you deploy your image to a container registry, it can scan your images for the vulnerability. And then we have security defenders for your clusters. And then we have infrastructure. And then at the last, the application security is starting from your WAF and firewalls. And this diagram shows all the parts that comes up in the picture along with the AKS, the minimum things that you will be requiring to create an enterprise level AKS cluster. Any questions here? And we can leverage Azure policies also to harden the parts. Let's say which is the node size you want to go ahead and choose. What can be your node OS images, versions, or which type of things you want to deploy. And you can create your custom policies, which will ensure a hardened, a better version, and the guardrails are present for the deployments. Time for AMA and questions.
So in security, you mentioned a lot of different tools and services you have, right? Do you also have something on the IDS and IPS side? Maybe it's a service on Azure side or something, or you're still guys dependent on technologies like FICO and all for IDS, IPS?
Can you just elaborate more about?
Okay. So the thing we are doing is basically scanning and doing a lot of stuff on the security before deploying it in on the production side, right? What if something, some breach is there on the production application?
So we have Defender there.
Okay.
Defender for Azure. So I was talking about container registry. When you deploy it, it does the code scanning and cluster scanning and cluster monitoring from the security perspective is also done by Defender for containers.
So is that a service which runs inside AKS or it runs on Azure side? I mean,
it runs on Azure side and it goes and monitors the container AKS, which you have enabled the monitoring.
It also have access to stop the attack over there itself, or it just detects that? It's IDS or IPS. That is what I wanted.
It can prevent block also.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions, team?
Ahtisham Zaidi. So I have one question. Let's say I have one application and we are trying to parse some sort of logs. We have one directory and there is one process that is trying to parse it and it is trying to insert the data in the database. Now, how can I containerize that particular application? Because the directory where the logs are coming, they are coming from some other FTP servers. Okay. Now, how I will containerize this, because these logs can be, I mean, in big in size. And if I include volumes, so I don't think so it will work.
So your application, what I got from your context is your application reads logs from somewhere and deploy and send them to another place.
It basically the processing of parser. It happens in the same server and insertion in the database. That also
to the
happens.
database,
Yeah.
right? So it's a simple application. So this, if you remember the previous sessions, we were talking about jobs. It can be done. There are multiple ways, like a scheduled way, where you can just run the job. You can have your logs into centralized systems like blob storage, right? From there, the new logs can be read by your application and then inserted, extracted information and instructed into the persistent storage with the database of your choice, right? The other can be trigger based, where let's say you get a file and identifying your order has status changed, and then your application can trigger, retrieve the details, and then insert it out. That can be containerized. It's based on the requirements, more details, and it will like what you want to do, how frequently you want to do, and what should be granularity. You can go ahead and decide your application. And there's obviously the if we talk about the containerization of the applications, you can create microservices, right? Based on that, and you have to follow the microservice design principle to define what should be the architecture and what the containers will do.
So basically, that application keeps polling that directory. So it just polls that directory. If there is any data or there is any log files into that, then it does the processing and insert it into the DB.
Yeah,
so,
you can. So polling, I said you can use the jobs, the cron jobs.
Okay.
It can poll.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question, team?
Yeah, so talking about logs, you said one way is for continuous polling at some fixed interval or something. So like, does Azure also offer something like simple notification service of like AWS, where we can create a trigger for some
Yes,
particular
we have a event grid where you can directly get the triggers. Let's say a new file comes over, so new something happens, and based on it can invoke the things.
One more question, like currently we use like EC2 with auto scaling. So I recently had to manually set up Prometheus and Grafana on another like machine and all that. So we have a monolith application, by the way. So is it ever worth to like deploy a monolith application on managed cluster instead of?
It's a good question. Let me try to elaborate and answer it. Now, let's say you have a monolith application and you want to modernize it. So you need to do a first assessment of that application. The first question, how many users are using currently? That what's the business value it has? Whether, because can this application be retired or not? We'll start from that place. Let's say it's an important application, we want to keep it. Then how much efforts are required to modernize it? So many times that applications might be rewritten, right? Or it's just like this application follows the microservices pattern. I can convert it in an easy way. You will decide either conversions or easy part. And let's say it's difficult to modernize this application into microservices, but still I can modernize to the latest technologies and go ahead. Then we have the options like web apps, right? We can go ahead and this application into web app also. If you can modernize, then modernize also. Let's say if it's a single small application, a container, we have web apps for containers. Then we have container instances that can be done. And but it's let's say it's a bigger farm. There are lots of microservices. Then the managed Kubernetes comes into picture.
One last question, like when we have microservices, we have a queuing service. So in managed Kubernetes, do you use your Azure's internal queuing service, or can we have something like Kafka, and can we allocate another node for Kafka?
So it's up to you. So now creating another service like queuing service, it will require again inherit the management issues, right? You have to manage the service, you have to monitor that, you have to ensure that the goes on, and it becomes we have our queuing services. It becomes the option to you, whichever you want to go ahead and use.
Okay, that's all. Thank you so much.
That's all. Any other questions, team? Thanks.